Do you hear that hum in the background? My editing computer is on. You know why? I was done recording this podcast. I finished it up. It was all finished. I said finished twice. I'll say it 3 times. But you know why I'm back recording here when I should be eating a Flex Pro meal right now? FlexProMeals.com/MCU podcast. Save 20% off your first order. Is because of an announcement. When I see Sony trending on Twitter, I'm like, okay, what's going on here, Sony? Are you sold? Is the PS5 going to be out in a month and a half? No. So it turns out that Disney could not come to terms with Sony to continue co-producing I'm so flabbergasted, the upcoming Spider-Man movies, so that Sony has no deal with Disney anymore, which means that Spider-Man is out of the MCU on future movies. And future, flabbergasted by this. Now, the terms before were extremely favorable to Sony. So how it worked was they were co-producing the movies, but Disney was producing it. Kevin Feige was producing these movies. He loves Spider-Man, and working in with the MCU the past few years has been magical. 5 movies. Civil War in 2016, Homecoming 2017, 2018, you get Infinity War 2019, you get Endgame, and then Far From Home, which is one of the, to me, the second best Spider-Man movie out of the, not counting the animated one, out of the 6 or so they've had, or 7 movies. It's the second best one. It's made over $1 billion for Sony. And Sony kept about 95% of the profits in this deal. So they put up the money, which they have, to get 95% of the profit when they're not doing any of the work. They did the marketing and distribution, but none of the work to produce the film. That was Disney doing that to make sure they didn't F it up. So now they came back to Sony, according to these reports, and said, we will put up half the money with you if we get half of the profits, not this 5% garbage, and then we can also help develop your other movies that you're putting out, like with Venom and all the other properties you have control of, like Black Cat and Silver Sable, which are owned by Sony now. And then Sony's like, well, no, we can do this ourselves. We got this figured out because you showed us the way how to do a cinematic universe using our character, Spider-Man, that we own, unless we make a movie every 3 years and the rights go back to you. So Disney comes in, takes almost no money from this compared to what Sony gets, does all the work to reinvigorate a character that Sony had fucked up. How do you fuck up Spider-Man? But they did with those Andrew Garfield movies. They fucked it up and had no plans for the future. Really, they had no idea where to go. We're going to do a Sinister Six movie. We're going to do an Aunt May movie. We're going to do a Gwen Stacy movie. We're going to do a Spider-Man. We're going to do all these different things. And then Disney swoops in and says, you know what? We can use them. Let's work something out. And so almost out of charity, it seems, Disney did this deal with them. And also to make sure they use one of those most popular characters correctly, because they don't want Sony to screw it up. So, and it worked. It worked great for Sony and for Disney. And they can't renegotiate at this point. It seems like at this point they're no counter offer from Sony. Sony could have said, how about we do 25% for you? No, Sony would rather make 100% of a shittier movie that they're going to put out without any of the MCU characters involved or any mention of the MCU characters. They'd rather make like $750 million 100% versus 50% of 1.2 or 1.1 billion. Which, yeah, on paper they're coming out ahead, but then there's less continuity for the character. There's less interesting interactions, and then he can't go out and do those other movies. So Sony's just the worst. That's the one thing I can say. You can say, yeah, Pat, they own the character now, they can do what they want. Yeah, but they've been grossly mishandling the character. Going back to Spider-Man 3, where Sam Raimi had no inclination to want to do Venom. He wanted to do his movie with Sandman and the Vulture and wanted to be just like, more traditional. And he was forced. Sam Raimi was forced to include Venom in Spider-Man 3. And you saw how that turned out. It turned out awful. And then when Spider-Man 4 came about, he was also forced to do things he didn't want to do. And so then he walked. And then when he walked, Tobey Maguire walked. So we didn't even get a chance to see, a fourth Spider-Man movie done to sort of like wrap up the franchise in a decent way, which everyone was kind of on board for at that point in 2007. So yeah, we'll get another one out in a couple of years, 2 to 3 years, and then Tobey Maguire and everyone else can go out on top. We didn't get to see that, so they do this reboot in 2012, and it was all right. It wasn't fantastic, and then the sequel was balls. The Amazing Spider-Man sequel was balls. And they're setting up all this shared Sony Spider-Man universe. It didn't happen. But now they're trying again. You see Sony's feeling their oats with the Venom movie. And reportedly behind the scenes, according to a couple articles I read, Kevin Feige was helping with that unofficially to make sure it wasn't a total train wreck. Because he recognizes, hey, yeah, Venom, we don't own the comics, we don't own the movie rights to, but he's still a Marvel character in the end. So we can't have shitty movies. We can't have another Fantastic Four debacle happen from 2015. Like, they're all invested because it's shared properties, even though they don't own the movie rights to it. So this is just a near catastrophe at this point. Near catastrophe. And I'll be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of having, Iron Man constantly mentioned and, having to rely on Nick Fury and things like that. But not having Spider-Man at all in the MCU after he's been in it now for 5 movies already is going to be weird as hell. I was looking forward to maybe in the next Spider-Man movie, them introducing the Fantastic Four, referencing them. Because they dropped little Easter eggs in the last movie about Fantastic Four, supposedly, in the background. That's what I saw. And now that they can't do that anymore. This is just like a kick to the balls. After what I gotta stick up for a big corporate Disney, but after they swooped in and repaired the damage Sony did to their own character they own the movie rights to, and they couldn't work something out. They didn't even try to negotiate. You could say, well, Pat, maybe they didn't want to give up 50%. How about 25% to make sure that this gravy train continues that Disney set up for them? This is one of the most peculiar deals probably ever in the history of motion pictures, where you have 2 companies co-producing it, but really one's doing all the work and getting none of the profits from it. Almost none of the profits, 5%. And all they wanted to do was say, well, we'll put up half the money, so we bought in, but then we get half the profits. And Sony didn't even counter that. Sony's like, no, we got it. We got our Venom movie. So now I got to look forward to a shitty Morbius movie that no one wants to see. Any other shitty villains. A Black Cat and Silver Sable movie that could do okay. I don't see it happening. And now we're going to have Spider-Man forced into these movies with Tom Holland. Forced into a shitty Venom movie to take on Carnage. Without any mention of the MCU at all. Just devoid of life. After, again, it wouldn't have been as bad as if we've now seen what you can do with Spider-Man in the MCU, fighting alongside the Avengers. He would have been fighting alongside the Fantastic Four going forward. He fought against Captain America in Civil War. And how beautiful a scene was seeing Spider-Man. That's still the best probably on-screen live-action Spider-Man I know of, was even the Civil War one. When he took him on and helped bring down Giant Man. And no, can't do it anymore. Just a shame. Just a shame. Sony being what's called penny wise, dollar short. They're thinking long term, not what's going to happen to the character in 5 years from now, when the next 2 movies don't do nearly as well. And then the casual audience realizes, hey, why is there no mention of the MCU here? What's going on here? Why isn't even Happy Hogan's not even in here to mentor Spider-Man anymore? That's kind of weird. He's been in the other movies. It's going to be weird, man. Hopefully they can turn it around. Another note, sad news. This happened after I recorded. GameStop laid off 100 people, including half of Game Informer's staff. And I know we talk about GameStop, how they're not long for this world, and those predictions are all right. But Game Informer is actually pretty respectable from what I've heard and seen. I haven't read one probably forever, and that's of course the magazine they give away for their their Power Up Rewards program. And so that seems like that magazine is getting a heavy cutback, unfortunately, right now. And so just I wish they would have rather sold it, GameStop, sold the magazine to someone else that could to carry it on well. Yeah. I'm going to read about this initiative now. Cutting jobs. Anyway, yeah, so just dumb all around stuff happening with Sony and Spider-Man. I guess it was too good to be true. And I kind of sensed something like this would happen if they had to re-up, if they had to re-up this all the time. Every 3, 4, 5 years. I guess it was a 5-movie deal. If that was the case, I wish I didn't put him in into these Avengers movies. I wish they saved him for the next couple. They're supposed to have two more Spider-Man movies in development with the current director and with Tom Holland. That's supposedly the news here. Just not good. Not good. Oh, and they're re-releasing Far From Home with a never before seen action sequence. Probably the one they cut from the trailers in the bank, in that scene in the beginning of it when they're in like the restaurant. That's what that's going to be, the extended version. Man, not good. Not happy about this. All right then. Well, that's it for this news. So it's sad for this. Also, the Game Informer staff being laid off is very sad, and unfortunately, on that aspect, there's not a lot of. It seems like every year something's being shut down, and there's less and less game news outlets. So it's hard for these people to find jobs easily here and there, because of that. So hopefully they land on their feet as well. In terms of the Spider-Man deal, yeah, I'm annoyed. Just annoyed by that.